Harper's Ferry 1805 pistol. Is that a pretty cool firearm or what? You will notice it's half cocked. It should not go off. We definitely don't want it to go off because I hate to go off half cocked. I'm going to cock it and I'm going to see if it will fire. And I'm going to see if I can hit that paper. I might miss. Hey, I didn't miss. I pulled it down a little bit, but there's the hole. And that tells you it's 58 caliber too. And today we're just going to shoot some round balls. And you know us, we do a variety of firearms because I love them all. And there's no telling what might show up on the table. And you might have seen this, you better have seen this firearm in the video. What was it, U.S. military firearm handguns since 1776, we called it, okay? We did the same thing with rifles. I'll link to it, okay? Make sure you check that video out. I think you'll like it maybe. And I talked about this, maybe I'll talk a little bit more about it today. It comes from an old French flintlock. It's based on a French flintlock, which I'm not that familiar with. There were other flintlock pistols before this one, of course. And this one, though, is considered one of the, it's the first U.S. flintlock pistol that was made by, you know, a national arsenal, Harper's Ferry, okay, which is kind of like Springfield Armory, but it's not. It's Harper's Ferry. It's no longer there. It didn't last as long. It was a raid. John Brown. There's a lot of history around Harper's Ferry, and it's one reason firearms that were made there command a higher price. If you find an old Civil War rifle, 1861 or whatever, that was made at Harper's Ferry instead of Springfield Armory, it's generally going to command a higher price because I think not as many were made and all that. Kind of like a Carson City silver dollar. It's worth more than one made somewhere else, Philadelphia. All right, so Harper's Ferry, a lot of history. And I got to clear up a couple of things right away. In that video on U.S. handguns, I think we start out with this one. One of the things I made the comment that, you know, this is the very firearm that Andrew Jackson used in a duel against Charles Dickinson, I think was his name. And no relation, I'm sure, to Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was busy writing, what, A Tale of Two Cities or something. He wasn't involved in gunfights at that time, I don't think. But Andrew Jackson, who later became president, was in a duel and killed this guy named Charles Dickinson. He had a brace of these, which means two. Relatives in Kentucky, it means two. If you have a brace of pistols, it's two. And that's how they were issued, actually. But this was, so anyway, to clear that up, I said this is the very pistol, the very gun, and a lot of people ask me, wow, really? Is that the one that he, no, not this specific gun. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I wasn't trying to mislead you or act big, like I've got the exact pistol that belonged to Andrew Jackson. My gosh, if I did, it'd be in a museum. I wouldn't be out here shooting it. It'd probably be worth $500,000, okay? I don't know where that pistol is. It's probably in the Smithsonian Institute, okay? But this is a replica of it, Pedersoli. All right, so just to clear that up again. And I understand, because people, you don't really know guns and values and how it all works. You know, you might have thought, oh, cool, that's cool. He's got the exact pistol. And I just assumed that people would know, not the very pistol. And then the other thing in that video, I said something about, I made a crack about how I couldn't find any information on the history of U.S. firearms that we adopted handguns back in the 1600s. So we were starting in 1700 or 1776 and went on. And a lot of people thought I was extra stupid because I didn't know that. So I was actually joking. Oh, pretty funny. A lot of gullible folks out there, but that's why we love you. That's why we love you. So anyway, we use flintlocks like this and rifles for about 180 years, I think, in the United States and Europe. And so there were various independent makers of these things. And again, this was one that was actually sort of mass produced, you know, by the Harper's Ferry. And maybe I'll be loading it while I'm talking. And it was used and issued, okay? So it saw service in the War of 1812, especially. It was issued, and it was considered the horseman's pistol. Because you could have two of these, have them loaded, and they were issued that way, you know, in pairs, you know, a brace of these things, and kind of cavalry, you know, a horseman's pistol is what they were designed for. and really useful. So, and they were used pretty extensively, I think, in the War of 1812, which I think took place in early 1800s sometime. So then there were some of these. Of course, it's like any handgun. If it's a U.S. handgun, it's used, of course, when it's made, and then there's always a shortage, for whatever firearm, any subsequent wars that come about, and so you're really using these things for a period of time, aren't you? And I think the Confederates, I read, even used this thing in the Civil War to some extent. There were flintlocks used, especially by the South, early in the Civil War. So anyway, there were a variety of these kinds of pistols. This one was known for being sleek and just lightweight and just ergonomic, and it feels good. Flintlocks are hard for me to shoot, but it does feel good. It's not overly heavy and bulky or anything, and it's attractive. That's more important than anything, right, for a military firearm. Look at that brass. So it's a good-looking handgun. There were a lot of variations of it. They made it an 1812, an 1818 version, I think an 1835. Now I think the last one was 1855, and it was chambered in .58 caliber, just like the 1855 rifle musket. But before that, they were 54, okay, 54 caliber, and they were smoothbore, okay, the originals. Now this one is 58, and it's rifled, so you could actually hit something with this one if you if you could shoot it. All right, it's rifled. So I'm just shooting about 30 grains. Got the hammer down. All right. Felt nice break there. All right. Now I'm going to shoot a ball, and I doubt they use these pre-lubed patches, but that's okay. In fact, you can just throw a ball down there and it'll do okay. But I'll put the patch on it and shoot another one, a ball starter. You know me, I love black powder. I'm not a big fan of these kinds of firearms. See, I've never had, they're really much more awkward than a rifle. The rifle you set on the ground and you just load that thing up, and they make stands for them. Actually I've had trouble. I've never had this much trouble. Okay. So I really enjoy standing at the shooting table and shooting a rifle more than one of these, even if this was a cap lock. Okay. But they're neat from a historical standpoint, and we wanted to show it to you. I bought this mainly to do video with and talk about for that U.S. handguns video, and then for this video. And there were other firearms after this made. They're probably more like the Johnson Waters. This one here you've seen. We've done videos with it. It's 54 caliber also, smooth bore. And as we worked up into 1830s, this one, as I've discussed before, it started out as a flintlock, you see, and then it was converted to cap lock. And so it's the transition gun. And you see that it was just like this, the original. If you see these at a gun show, you might see them in flintlock or cap. Most of them are being converted. So 54 caliber. So these kinds of firearms were what we used in the pre-Glock era, right? Pre-revolver era. And after this, then we went to the revolvers, right? Like this, the Dragoon, big old Walker Colt. You get 5 or 6 shots. So that's the only reason I had those out there. And then the Glock 19 came about in 1835, I think. And so in 1835, they started making, these things. Is that right? No, sorry, I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. So anyway, back to 1805. And also, these were, they're called the 1805 Harper's Ferry. They're also called the 1806. Some people can call them the 1807. And you'll find originals with, this one has 1807 on the lock. It's a replica. But you'll find them with different dates on the lock, 1806, 1807, whatever. But they started out in 1805, but there were actually, I think, as I understand, none of them actually manufactured until the following year. And then I think it was just the locks maybe. So it was really 1806 or 1807 before many of them were actually finished and issued, and so you got that kind of deal. And so there's some confusion on that. Use my powder measure here. Oh, the only reason I'm using this, I have a couple of tools for for priming the pan for flintlock. I don't shoot flintlocks very much. I couldn't really put my hands on it, so I'm just using this. Now, why would I be doing that instead of just pouring it out of the can? Now, I'm probably not going to get a spark or anything, but anytime you've got a whole pound of powder in your hand, that's not necessarily good if you did get a spark or something, okay? So, yeah, just what's in the little measure is better. All right, now I'm not going to shoot a lot of times, or else you and I and John would be here all night. But I just wanted to kind of give you another look at it and talk about the history of this thing. Shoot a couple of times. You have seen it, you know, in that other video I was talking about, but we just have never done a separate video with it. And it's been hanging on the wall and in the safe. I'm going to shoot this water jug in case I don't get to it. Whoa, little slippery spot there. All right, now I'm getting close. I'll probably miss it. Point blank. You ready? Oh no. So we'll have to load him up again. Now I did put powder in, right? Y'all saw me. Okay. All right, that was just a flash in the pan, wasn't it? We got no lead going out the barrel. Now you see why I am not crazy about flintlocks. Now if you knew what you were doing back in the day, you know, they worked, and I may have had too much powder in there. That was something that I have learned just from some of y'all's comments on the other one I have. Make sure there's nothing simmering. I don't even want this thing to go off. But I've learned from people who do this a lot. They say you can get too much powder very easily in the pan. You're better off with too little than too much. You cover up the hole and all that. All right. So let's put that frizzing down. All right. Let's try that again. Okay. You know, I didn't have my ears on anyway, but I wasn't going to worry about it once I got started. Maybe the gods knew I didn't have my ears on. All right, see if we get more than a flash in a pan. Oh, the powder, that didn't do anything, so we'll put that back down. One thing that happens too is the flint actually gets dull or whatever. All right. There we go. All right. Yeah, there's some piece of work, I tell you.